Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. We are here on a Wednesday night, middle of the week. Hope you all are doing fine. My name is Stuart Davis. I am a flawed man of God, deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. Not a pastor, not a biblical scholar, and I haven't been to seminary. Not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm here to do is talk to you about God, talk to you about Jesus, about the Holy Spirit, about Christianity, about the Bible, about a wide variety of topics, issues, and current events, and give you my perspective of them, one that I think is reflective of your average Christian guy. Been a Christian all my life, 40 years, non-denominational Protestant. I don't subscribe to any particular doctrine or denomination, just in the word daily, trying to do it better every day. Sometimes you'll see me get it right. Many times you'll see me get it wrong, but what you will get from me is my honest takes on what I'm talking about whenever I'm streaming. So if you are somebody who is interested in learning more about Jesus, coming to Christianity, and trying to find out what makes us as Christians tick, welcome to the show. Hope you're able to get some answers to that. Hopefully, you can get some influence that Christianity is maybe not as bad as a lot of folks out there will have you believe, and maybe some of your preconceptions might be proven false. Doesn't matter. Whatever it is, I want you to join the chat if you can, or just listen along. But I'd love to get your questions. I'd love to get any type of input that you have and respond to it. It's a very small community that I have right now. So anything you put in the chat, I will be able to respond to it. Um, it is very relaxed, comfortable setting where we can talk about God. Most of the time, we're talking about the Bible, but tonight we've got something a little bit different. If you are already a Christian and just like and enjoy Christian topics and discussions, welcome as well. We run this very similar to a Wednesday night study group or a Sunday school. We want to have a nice community here where we can all talk about our different perspectives on things and still come together and understand the fundamentals that is expected of us as Christians. So without further ado, and I feel like I've streamlined that intro uh, a lot better than have. I don't like how long it gets, but I do think that you guys are worth mentioning as the chat. I want to get people in the chat. I want people to understand that the chat is worthwhile. You guys are doing a great job. Nico, you were the first person here. Early Friday stream. No, it is definitely Wednesday, but it is not our usual topic. Not our usual topic. We are going to be going just off course a little bit, but I saw it this morning. It's something I've talked about before on streams, and I read an article and it's fresh in my mind, so I wanted to go ahead and get to it, where somebody broke down what I've been trying to communicate in a way that I thought was better than I have. And so um, instead of me continuing to blunder over my explanations of all the problems I have with what goes on in the Manosphere, I'm going to let somebody else kind of speak to it. And they're not on stream, but it is an account I've started following recently. I don't know much about them other than I've liked what I've seen. So it's Evangelical Dark Web. It's, you know, it's if you're kind of on the right conservative leading type of mindset, definitely if you are someone of faith, you may find it very edifying. At least I have so far. And they wrote what I found to be a very banner piece, and that's what we're going to go over tonight. Blaine, welcome to the show, sir. I haven't caught your show in a while. Pill time? I feel like I was pitching white ones last night. I saw that was going on. I wanted to join in. I was gaming with a buddy though, so I didn't get a chance to see it. Hopefully it was pretty cool. What's the tick for the topic? We'll get into that soon. Emmanuel Sorio, hello everyone. Is this a red pill show? Let's get ready. I'm ready for doll talk. Let's come into the void. That is the dating market, Stu. This is going to be this is going to be kind of anti-MGTOW. This is going to be a little bit of the pulling back on some of the stuff that that we have heard about, that we have seen about. And as we know, as anybody who's watched, who is a fan of Nick, I know many of you guys are. Y'all remember uh, the Jack Murphy meta, the Jack Murphy story arc, the deep lore that is the oddly colored beard. And that's what really got me fired up about it. When that story broke about what was going on, I was like, this is precisely the problem that I have with a lot of these, you know, I got to be extra manly. I've got to make sure that I talk in a certain way. I need to make sure the grift, the absolute grift that exists within there, without a lot of the actual spiritual maturity that should go along with that. That what we need to see in culture. We cannot change culture if we're not bringing Christ into it. And I think that that's a big problem. It's a big problem we see. And a lot of these guys that are in these groups, they don't know about it. They don't know God. And some claim to, and they're as far detached as possible from it. AKA Jack Murphy, talking about, oh, I found God, meaning the same at the same time he's got a daggone one of those weird pornography channels where he's doing weird stuff to himself, 69 for 69, that kind of odd stuff. What does that say? What kind of example does that set? So, welcome, Dresden. How's it going? What's going on, Nico? If you want a red pill guy, watch Glenn Lawrence. I'm a big MGTOW guy, but that doesn't mean it's for everyone. I'm grinding it out right now so I can get my doll. The grift is real, but you either look for God or you get led to depravity. And I think that this will, Emmanuel, I think that I'm interested to see what your response is to this. Because when I decided I was going to talk about it, you were somebody who came to one of the first of my viewers who came to mind as someone who has talked openly about this, and I'll be interested to see what your take is on this. But like I said, as I was reading it, it said a lot of the things that were going through my mind whenever I'm thinking about this particular topic, and I haven't been able to put them in great words. So here it is. Source is Evangelical Dark Web. I've only just started seeing them around the time of the Southern Baptist Convention meeting. That's when I started seeing them pop up. I don't know how long they've been around, but what I've seen has been good, right? All right, so we're gonna read through this. It's a very long article, but like I said, I think it's worthwhile. And I haven't read through it and broken it down so much to know that I'm going to agree with everything that's said here. But I saw enough that I wanted to really talk about it. And let me pull this up. Links in the description if you want to go back and look at it yourself. Please give these guys a follow on Twitter if that's your speed. Let's see. Where is it? Ah, there it is. Blaine, what was it? Paul that started the celibate monk tradition. Yeah, Paul basically said, "Look, I need a more educated response to this, but this is basically Paul saying, look, for what I'm doing for my mission, I don't got time. I don't really have time for anything else right now." Or at least that's the impression I get out of it. I don't think that Paul said anything countermanding God's commandment to us to be fruitful and multiply, to be paired up with another one. I don't believe in I don't believe that preachers should be celibate, unmarried. I think that is partaking in and being part of the experiences of life is what makes you a better leader of the flock. And that's not to say that you need to experience sinful things, but experience what God has commanded of us, of all of us. It's difficult for a priest, like a Catholic priest, in my opinion, to counsel people with with premarital counseling, issues with with what's going on in marriages when there is no self experience within it. So, um, yeah. That's kind of MGTOW going God's way. Well, it's a little bit different, but it is men going God's way. MGTOW. That's what we'll call that. All right. So the title of the article is "Red Pill versus Christ Pill: Evaluating the Harm of Rollo Tomasi, Pearly Things." I don't know who Rollo Tomasi is. I'm just assuming it's somebody else who's within this Manosphere movement. I try to avoid it at all costs. I find it very cringe and very put on. There's a lot of acting. Said, we don't claim Pearly thinks she's an Uber grifter, but Rollo is a good info source along with Coach Greg Adams, Minister Jap, and Drexel. And like I said, I like Drexel, but I don't go with a lot of things he says. But I understand from where he's coming from on a lot of things. All right, here we go. Let's get. Oh, they got a YouTube channel. Apparently. Oh, cool. I'll link that later. All right. In recent years, the quote unquote red pill movement has arisen with its influencers growing massive followers through the reactionary content that identifies the pitfalls of feminism and modernity to a lost generation. The term plays off the matrix red pill versus blue pill dynamic of one awakening to the realization of modern modernity, particularly with the within the relationship context. And obvious that would be the red pill. The blue pill would be no, I want to stay and be, live this fantasy. It is easy to examine the pitfalls of feminism, which was always detrimental to society. Within America, the sexual revolution and no-fault divorce have led to the breakdown of the nuclear family, amounting to 40% of births being outside of wedlock and only 63% of children living with both of their biological parents. Because feminism ushered the homosexual agenda, this furthered the sexual confusion that plagues Gen Z, of which about 20% identify as not straight. The poisonous fruit is self-evident. Really strong beginning. Lots of lots of real facts being presented here. Feminism being an issue. We're seeing what? Are we still in third wave feminism? Have we reached the fourth wave where men are women now? Everybody's a woman now? I don't know, but it feels like that's where we're trending. But we see a lot of the problems that we have seen this, and how it has broken down, family. The family unit has been an absolute cancer on our society. Absolute cancer within the faith as well. It's not, and I've said this before, it's not a coincidence that the rise of women pastors, women religious leaders, gay religious leaders has coincided with feminism. It comes around, it's like they use the same landmark, the sexual revolution of the 60s and the 70s. In the 70s, you start seeing this stuff crop up more and more. The Methodists, but we've seen it with the Methodists, we've seen it with the Anglicans, we've seen it with the Episcopalians in the Anglicans, we've seen it in the Evangelical Lutherans. It's there, and it's been a huge problem. And like I said, it has hurt us, it has hurt and confused the Christian faith immensely, because we get a lot of mixed messages from people who don't know what they're talking about. Oh, here we go. Blaine said, Rollo is the douche dad of the Manosphere. He's been married forever and talks the same circles over and over. Manuel said, Rollo made the book series about intersexual dynamics. There are 5 books. Wait, and I can't forget Aaron Clary. I have no idea who any of these people are. Dresden said, to be fair, God did get another man to raise his child. Jerry Springer would be proud. Um, well, it wouldn't be another man. It would be a man to raise his child. God is God. But look, and he had a woman give birth to his child. I mean, that's what we see. We see with Jesus, uh, God living the human experience, but doing it in a way that is perfect and teaches us. And at the end, well, not at the end, but and the climax, sacrificing himself for our sins. Then, boop, what do you know? Resurrecting, defeating death, and performing miracles and giving us instructions. Dresden, that depends on who you're talking to. Technically, no, because you can't be born of a virgin if they're no longer a virgin. Dresden. Nico, I don't know if it was just feminism that made men gay. Lol, it seems like a multifaceted issues of culture. I think this was the harbinger, I would say, more than anything. Feminism made the Greeks gay. All right. The challenge of redressing feminism has created numerous avenues of thought. The so-called manosphere markets predominantly to young men through numerous personalities, including Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, and Andrew Tate. Um, the former being a huge problem. It is of the lattermost personality which has embodied what is labeled the red pill movement. While Tate is atop this movement, there are other personalities which have garnered massive followings. Pearl Davis, Just Pearly Things, has 1.56 million subs on YouTube. Rollo Tomasi, The Rational Male, has 214,000 subs on YouTube. That's a lot less. Fresh and Fit, which has 1.45 million subs on YouTube, and the deceased image consultant Kenneth Samuels has 1.75 million subs on YouTube. There are other adjacent labels this movement might encompass, like incels, MGTOW, and passport bros. Okay, and they'll break that down. Incels, involuntary celibates, MGTOW, men going their own way, and passport bros, men who travel abroad to date foreign women. The one commonality that gave rise to these influencers and countless others and the related movements is the abysmal state of modern women and the increased frustration of modern men. Yeah. And if you've listened to Drexel before, or probably some of these other folks, you get a lot of the same, you get a lot of this right here, but specifically MGTOW and Passport Bros, because that's usually there's usually some part and parcel there. Don't trust when they tried to take away our booze. Never forget. May God bless Kevin Samuels. He was a real one. This is coming from Emmanuel Osorio. He helped a lot of black men along with Aaron Clary. So yeah, this is just talking about, where this has come from. There is an industry here, and there are personalities. Emmanuel's listing them off one after another here. And again, I know Jordan Peterson, I know Joe Rogan, I know Andrew Tate, but I haven't heard of any of these other folks. Again, these aren't circles I travel in. These are circles that I specifically avoid. As society continues to destabilize both socially and economically, this problem is going to persist. Unfortunately, none of the above mentioned names are genuine Christian. And while they might espouse beliefs that partially align with Christian teaching, they ultimately fall short in their lifestyles, failing to provide a healthy model for both relationships and gender roles. All right. So, this seems particularly targeted at Jordan Peterson, who is a weird study. I've wanted to get some people who seem to obsess over Jordan Peterson on the show to talk about why there is such a fixation on bringing Jordan Peterson specifically to Christ. Now, I've listened to him talk. He's a great orator. He does have a lot of good ideas, but again, he is still very much someone who is who has to have reason. He wants to see proof. He is not a man of faith, and I don't know what's going to lead him. And maybe winning him over, maybe getting him to see the light. Which anytime we're able to convert somebody and bring somebody to Christ is a victory. It's always a victory. But maybe he would be the example for a lot of the folks in these in this sphere to kind of follow along. I don't see Joe Rogan converting. I just don't see it. Andrew Tate, he's a fake. Some people say he's a Fed. Some people say a lot of different things about him. But what I do see from him is mark and avoid by all means. And he's Muslim now. He threw all that away. He's obsessed with women, and not in a healthy way. Obviously, there's been a lot of rumor about him. I don't know. None of that stuff has been proven in court, but it's still just what he says, how he says it. It's not good. What I do kind of disagree with is they espouse beliefs that partially align with Christian teaching. That's good. They ultimately fall short in their lifestyles, failing to provide a healthy model for both relationships and gender roles. I don't necessarily think that that's a requisite. I think somebody who is working through, I mean, to say if Jordan Peterson were to walk through his rehabilitation to Christ and talking about this is my path to Christ, then that might be good, even though he is still probably falling short in many aspects. We all are falling short in many aspects. I assure you. I'm on here telling you I am deeply flawed. There are things that I do that are wrong, and that I need to work on. I need to work on my sinful nature. And that's not something that I need to say God needs to accept that I do it, that everybody else has to accept. I have to change. I need to repent. I need to be better. Life is a work in progress. What's going on, Porcupine? Nico said, see, I don't know if Jordan Peterson, worse, Joe Rogan, is a Manosphere guy. The people in Manosphere talk about them a lot, but don't mean they are in them. Yeah, and I think that's why they kind of centered on Andrew Tate, because Andrew Tate, I know, is deeply in that group. Wrangle Star is the internet dad everyone needs. I don't know who any of these people are. I'm such a boomer. Emmanuel said there's an industry to it, but the info they give is very valuable, especially when you get screwed over and over again, and you just want to see what's under the hood. So I thought rehab would have been that event for Jordan Peterson. Apparently it wasn't. He's getting a lot of influence from Ben Shapiro, I'm sure, and that's probably leading him more to Judaism than it is to Christianity, which is incorrect. Again, modern churches try to sell servant leadership to the men, while in reality is to learn the Bible and actually read and learn that the man is the leader of his own life and household. But being a leader does involve servant leadership at times. Again, it's all about balance. And I feel like in modern churches aren't trying to sell. They're talking about, they say servant leadership, but what they mean is capitulation. There's a difference between what servant leadership actually is in practice and what people will say it is. I've seen this problem firsthand, and it grates on my nerves, because true servant leadership is something like we see with God, in my opinion, is something like Christ sacrificing himself. You guys keep screwing up. I'm going to show you how to live a perfect life. I'm going to give you great examples to live by. I'm going to serve you by putting your sin on me and dying for it. And there's less overt ways of doing that, but we've all hopefully had good role models and leaders in our lives who have shown us examples of why servant leadership, being the ability to recognize servant leadership, is important. But it's not, like you said, what they're trying to sell, Emmanuel, is not actually servant leadership. They just put that stamp on it to make it sound like, oh, okay, the church is here to serve me. That's not what that is. You don't, it's not leading through being a servant. I don't think servant leadership is what you've been taught it is. Coming to terms with and versus accepting as me are two very different things. Yeah. Emmanuel says, again, it's up to the individual. If you want to go bang a bunch of 304s, go for it. But if we all fall short from the glory of God, remember, Samson wasn't the best character, but God still gave him grace. Right. But what did Samson do? Samson at the end realizes what he had done that was wrong, where he had lost faith, where he had been full of himself. And that kind of stuff going on. There is a deep moment of humility and there's a deep moment of humility with Samson and beseeching God to do God's will by taking down these enemies, because these enemies aren't just enemies of Samson. These are enemies of God. Give me the strength to sacrifice myself and by doing your will. Porcupine says, have y'all seen the Brian Suave Twitter drama regarding men being a lowercase savior for their family, community, fellow man? No, I have not. Emmanuel says, we report up, man serves God. Woman supposedly is to follow the man. But as the world is slowly becoming the days of slowly becoming the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, we are lights. We are the light that's supposed to lead the way. Yes. But again, men have made mistakes along the way that has led to feminism. The church has made mistakes that has led to feminism and led to where we are. And we have let slip, and we have compromised values, and we have compromised principles that have put us here. And some of that, a lot of this is tolerance and affirmation, but some of it is also fundamentally fundamental errors in leading a family. Which, look, a dad in some ways serves his family. All right, the growing problem. This is an era where the average age of a first marriage for a man is 30.4 years and 28.6 years for women, both of which are all-time highs for Americans and trending upwards. Yet, this problem is not merely the age of marriage, but the formation of relationships that eventually lead to marriage. 63% of men 18 to 30 are single, compared to 34% of women, a difference of 29%. That's not exactly, yeah, you'd think it should be more even. In 2019, the same survey had 51% of men 18 to 30 as single, representing a 12% increase. Thank you, EDW, for doing the math for us. Though it is natural for men in their 30s and thus outside that cohort to seek women younger and thus within the cohort, does that really account for a 29% difference? Even if it did, the 30 to 40-year-old men pursuing women under 30 reflects this negative societal trend of later marriages. The advent of dating apps, rather than reverse trends in marital decline, has created hookup culture and prolonged adolescence instead of marriage. This is something very interesting to me, and something that I have worried about for other up and coming generations. My generation, which is Xennial, so I'm kind of at the end of the Gen X. I'm at the beginning of the millennial. We're in that kind of bubble where we kind of experience both sides of each generation. I met my wife online, but it wasn't through a dating app. That's just where our paths crossed, and we found out that we lived near to each other, and our friendship, courtship, and eventual relationship all grew from a more face-to-face, firsthand knowledge basis, as opposed to us filling out a profile. The profile, I thought you were a boomer. Only in my behavior, Serranos. We didn't put a bunch of stuff into a profile, have it spit it out to us, and tell them this are the people that you should meet. Now I know folks who have met this way, folks that are older than me, some folks that are somewhat younger than me, and they have long and lasting marriages, and that's where it works. But that's not to say that's what everybody was looking at. When I was in college, when people were when the women I knew and the men I knew were using these relationship dating apps. This is before Tinder. That's what when they were in college, that's what they were looking for. They were saying, "I'm looking for a boyfriend." They're not saying, "I'm looking for a husband." "I'm looking for a boyfriend." "I'm looking for a relationship." "I'm looking for," and the guys were, "I'm looking for someone to bang." And there was the same thing. I remember guys that I was in the army with were there was an online bootycall.com that they were getting into, hooking up through Facebook, all sorts of avenues where you take the courtship out, and it's just, yeah, let's have sex. Let's have that. Emmanuel said, hookup culture was made by the birth control pill. Why do you think women fight so hard to keep abortion rights? It is the ultimate end of hypergamy. If she doesn't want the child, she can't. Wait, hold on. Oh, never mind. It was a typo. If she doesn't want the child, she can eat the kid. Yes. Well, I can try to put my head in the mind of somebody who wants to keep abortion rights. I don't know where that's coming from. I don't know where I don't know why that's a thing. I can't rationalize that. I kind of can, but then I just can't make that leap to say, yeah, that makes sense. But yes, hookup culture has been around for millennia, right? That's why all the that's why there's all the stereotypes about sailors. That's why there's so many stories about prostitution. It's the oldest profession, right? Prostitution following armies around. When there was the gold boom, the gold rush in the 1800s, what was one of the first things that popped up? Whorehouses, right? So it's been around for a while, but the birth control pill has made it much easier. And so has excuses that they have found, that people have found, doctors have found, to give birth control to young women. And this is something that my generation especially fell for, because maybe we were the first ones that were really introduced it from the beginning. Get your daughters on the pill. That way, when they're in high school or middle school, they are protected, and you get the old Obama quote, "I don't want them punished with a baby." And then you immediately have that connotation that pregnancy, that a child is a punishment, that it is a consequence. It might have been a consequence to David and Bathsheba, but again, look what we got out of that union. We got Solomon. But we devalue kids. We devalue infants, which are the most vulnerable of our population. But if you don't have to worry about, the premise, sex is reserved for a married couple, a man and a woman in a family. What's going on, Veritax? Man and woman married to each other, creating with the idea that a family, children can come from this, then sex becomes a risk. And now you've taken away a lot of the risk. So you could still get an STD. You'd still get STDs, but Yeah, that hookup culture was expanded, I would say, Emmanuel. Nico said birth control and dating apps are two Pandora boxes of the era, and we still don't know how to deal with the consequences. Here's the other thing. About this, especially with the birth control pill. It is doing things hormonally to young women, adolescent women, and women outside past their adolescence that their body's not necessarily designed to be doing. And I don't think anybody wants to look at the long-term consequences of this. But I think that some of the problems that we see with society might have a lot to do with the fact that a lot of women get on this pill early. Their parents even a lot of times put them on this pill as early as possible, and they stay on it until they're married at 28 years, and maybe they don't get off of it at that point. Veritax, thank you. You're going to back me up and bring me some facts, right? Veritax says the other thing, the modern healthcare post-Civil War went a long way to expanding lifespans, and you saw more industrialization, so less early teen marriages in farm country. The pill doesn't just stop pregnancy. It impacts other parts of the endocrine system as well as the nervous system and brain. Exactly. And that's not a good thing. Emmanuel says you see it most of the time in lower income places, not only places I grew up in, but most, if not all, lower income places. But you see it everywhere, Emmanuel, because pregnancy out of wedlock is kind in lower income places is kind of just a thing. It's just a thing that happens because you see it every day. But and you're in higher class neighborhoods, more well-to-do and affluent families, it is a societal mark of shame. It is somebody did, and that's not happening. So a lot, and so that's when you see a lot of people trying to protect their image in the community, might quietly take their daughter away or quietly offer a woman that they had a tryst with, try to convince them to have an abortion. Right. Veritex, I'm convinced a lot of depression cases in women are caused by the pill, either while on it or the after effects once it's no longer needed and the desire for kids can't be fulfilled. Yes, I agree. That is something I have a lot of concerns with, and a lot of I feel that way too, Veritex. I feel that way too. The failure to form families directly correlates with population collapse. Globally, mankind is struggling to repopulate above replacement, with the global fertility being 2.3 as of 2021, according to the World Bank. Don't trust the banks. In America, fertility stands at 1.664, meaning that America is below population replacement. But this trend is especially profound in East Asian nations that have the lowest birth rates in the world. Younger marriages would be a primary step in improving the fertility rate. Otherwise, Western nations will be strained from aging populations and rely upon third world immigration for replacement, ultimately to destruction of the individual nations. This is, to me, this is more of a political point. I'm not as worried about this aspect. I guess this is an added issue or added problem that comes about it. I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried about this symptom. I'm worried more about the cause. We know that East Asian nations, there's a lot of problems going on in East Asian nations, and there's a lot of population control being enacted on them, one-child policies and stuff like that, that is affecting that as well. And there's a lot of godlessness in those areas as well. If we start encouraging people to commit to lasting relationships, then these earlier marriages, these younger marriages, and this fertility rate will just naturally, I think, will naturally rectify itself. And they kind of allude to that here as well. I mean, I said again, I'm willing to learn. I'm not saying I'm holier than thou. No, I'm not. I'm not getting that approach, that idea from you, Emmanuel. I'm not saying I'm holier than thou, man. I'm willing to learn from all sides. But again, that's why you see and hear the term alpha seed, beta need. I haven't heard that, but there you go. I don't think you're being holier than thou. Blaine said a lot of girls going through puberty would get the pill prescribed to help with acne. Yeah, to help with acne. To help with acne. Yeah, yeah. And look, like I said, I didn't go to the marriage bed a virgin. The girl I lost my virginity to was on the pill for acne. Veritax, I hear China is worried about its population falling rapidly because of its past policies. Oh, yeah, this is like a 20, 25-year long concern. I remember I read it in an take. Now, I don't need to give you the reasons why. I was wasting time at work about 15 years ago. And I was reading an article where it was talking about that, how China had a generation that was reaching the age of retirement, where they can't work anymore, because you know how old they've got to be, because it's China. The can't work anymore, and it did not have anywhere near enough people to replace them. Anywhere near. And I remember reading that and I'm a logistics guy. Look, everything I think about from a profession, from as a professional, is logistics oriented. And that immediately sent up a bunch of of warning alarms. That's a huge huge problem. Nico says, "Lol, I thought my Japanese brothers are winning with their AI waifus." No, they're not. Emmanuel said, again, people are going to make their choices, but that doesn't mean you should take a single mother as a wife. Let God forgive her, but you don't have to take her. Interesting point, Emmanuel. And I really need to get this is going to sidetrack us too much, but it goes to the point of it comes down to choice. You are choosing the person to have a relationship with. You shouldn't take a single mother as a wife, but you should, if you don't intend to have if there isn't some sort of end result where you end up married to this person, there's not or a plan to marry this person. I'm courting this person because this is somebody I begin to see myself spending the rest of my life with. You don't start that with them if you already have if there's already non-starters in there. So you don't take a single mother of a wife. Don't date a single mother. Don't have sex with a single mother. Don't do that, because you're only perpetuating the problem. The reason that this stuff is happening as much as it does is it not just the fact that there are single mothers and single fathers, single mothers out there, but there is the understanding that even though I'm a single mother, I'm still going to be able to hook up as much as I want. And maybe if that went away, maybe if that stuff went away, maybe that's when the impetus goes, oh, okay, if I want to make sure that I have a man around, unless your name is Hosea. Thank you, Blaine. If I need to be a man around to provide for and protect me, and not just instead of having a revolving door, I need to make sure I commit. It starts with that. Veritex, I was on tetracycline and antibiotic for acne for a time. Yeah, my wife had was it bacterial acne when she was younger. I don't think she has it anymore. I don't know. She doesn't have acne, really get acne anymore, so it's not a thing. So Serrano said, China's doing great, guys. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm not worried. Emmanuel said, many people want to be sedated via drugs, pornography, or other things, but you take away those sedations from men, it gets ugly fast. Does it though? I'm an ADHD guy. I'm not medicated. Haven't been medicated since I was in high school. Once I learned that I could not serve in the Army while being medicated, I took myself off of it. Looking back, I'm glad I did. Other people who take that medication use it as a crutch. You see it. It's always in their bio. I'm ADHD. Like it's a daggone mental disease. It's not. It's not. In fact, for me, like I said, it has its pros and cons, but I try to use it as an advantage. You take away pornography. Yeah, take away pornography from men. It's bad. It is a cancer on your brain. Pornography is. It is an evil and ugly addiction. It doesn't get ugly fast. It gets better, and I don't think it would be fast, but it will get better. Emmanuel said, see, that's why I went MGTOW, because most people either see it as a safe landing or try to take advantage. Just give me my dolls and leave me alone. Look, like I said, Emmanuel, I hope that, and you're still very young, and I'm not saying that to say you don't know, you don't have life experience. I'm saying you've still got a lot of life ahead of you. You've still got a lot of events that can happen where you could be some lady crosses your path that fits, that checks all the boxes. We'd get a lot more bum fight contests. Man, bum fights. Taking me back to the early 2000s. Veritax said, I wonder if you should have a license to use social media. I would rather they just get rid of it. These kids have devices in hand all day long. It's practically religious devotion. Emmanuel, here's one thing I wanted to talk to you. Now, these guys are reformed, and they're very heavy. They come across very heavy-handed. But you got to understand, it took me a little while to figure out where they're going with things. So they're Calvinists, and like I said, they can sound very heavy-handed, but follow the Bible Bashed, follow Bible Bash. They were on this show several months ago. Had a great time with them, and they're hilarious at times. But follow them, and because they ask a lot of these questions that you talk about. And it'd be interesting to see, because they back up a lot of their stuff with scripture. Like I said, I don't always agree it's going in the way, but what I really need to explain what I see that the Bible Bashed is doing, what a lot of their detractors think that they're doing. It's two very different things. They always think Bible Bash is attacking people. They're not. What they're saying is, look, if you're exhibiting a lack of faith, that's sinful nature. You need to get past that. You need to stop being anxiety is an issue with a lack of faith. You need to get past that. You need to get off the drugs and put your faith in God. Put your faith in the Lord. Let him let him give you peace. And a lot of people think that they're just trying to shame people. No, they're saying is there is a path there's a path without pills. You don't have to rely on these things that do have other horrible side effects. Veritex, I wonder if you should have I already read that. Wait, no, here's Emmanuel. Emmanuel says, yeah, it's the marketing of the women's fertility is evergreen. Women, for the most part, love to buy in the lies. Again, see Eve and the serpent, which, because we have this precedent, because God has explained this to us in scripture, which is why, or just another example, explaining that the reason why men are the leaders of the family and women support. Blaine said, meds always the needs to be a need, means to an end. Learn to function without. Emmanuel says, as much as I agree with you, Stu, there are a lot of dudes addicted to porn and weed. You take that and woo, since they didn't have God in their life, it gets dark fast. Now that I know. Again, I still have much to learn. And that's a problem I don't have an answer to. I'm not saying that I know the way to fix that, but what I'm saying is we have them addicted. They're currently addicted to things that are unhealthy and unholy. Veritex, I'm going to disagree. There are conditions that require medication to help stabilize people because of medical conditions, poor nutrition, contaminants in food, air, drinking, and water. No, I'm not an anti-medicine person. And I know that there are things like schizophrenia and deeply problematic things that medicine kind of helps balance out. But all the ladies out there and all the men who are going, I have anxiety, pump me full of meds. That's a problem. That's a problem. To spread the word about how porn links to the ED. I mean, and this I can fully admit I have to grow on not being such a doomer because of the crap I've seen and experienced. Those experiences, though, are going to help you be better, though, Emmanuel. And I see that in you. Veritex says, but there are drugs that are prescribed for the wrong reasons and causing other problems because they don't consider all the possible side effects. Nearly every med has a trade-off or side effect. Exactly. Besides, I was one of those coomers who just wants to stay safe with his waifus. I was a coomer when I was younger, too. I was, too. It hurt me. Made me less, and perhaps made me less confident in myself. I don't know. I landed where I landed, and like I said, I'm still a work in progress. I still need to do better, but I feel like I feel like a blessed man. I have got a wife, three kids who are happy and healthy. We are going to church. My wife is now saved. My kids are growing up in the church, in the faith. I love that. If I had not made certain choices, that's not where we would be. I feel like I'm on a good path. Because I've seen that I've had to grow. Otherwise, you can't evolve in the faith or in life. Everybody's path is different, Emmanuel. You doing all right? This is all right. Back to the article. This is an existential problem facing the world, as nations in their decadence do not even have the desire to reproduce. Without proper remedy, the world will offer its solutions, particularly in the West, to combat the loneliness, while individuals capitalize off the strife between men and women. Simp culture has turned countless. I love that they brought this up. Simp culture has turned countless men into hapless excuses of male genitalia, vicariously paying internet prostitutes, thus validating women in their sin and enticing others to follow suit. Artificial intelligence, Nico talking about the AI waifus, artificial intelligence is being used to create AI girlfriends to market to the lonely men that cannot get a woman to speak with them. Hold on a second. There we go. All right. Artificial intelligence is being used to create AI girlfriends to market to lonely men that cannot get a woman to speak with them, engendering Bill Burr's sex robot joke in his stand-up Paper Tiger. I don't remember that. I didn't watch all the stand-up. I missed that part. They may have wanted to extrapolate a little bit further. Bill Burr's hilarious, but he also has a problem with God too. Very interesting. I'm very glad they brought this up. Simp culture is horrendous. It makes men into less than what they were supposed to be. And with that, you have, again, what I like this. Individuals capitalize off the strife between men and women. And it's not just the MGTOWs or the incel and all that other stuff that's going on. They will openly tell you, simp culture, hapless excuses of male genitalia. paying internet prostitutes, validating women in their sin, enticing others to do the same. And the artificial intelligence that goes right in hand with that. The red pill community might effectively identify these problems, but its solutions and ideologies prove dangerous and contrary to Scripture's teachings, beginning with its views on marriage. And here's where we're going to get into it a little bit more. But what they do here is basically what I say. When you read them, if any of you guys have read the book Atlas Shrugged, Ayn Rand does a great job identifying a lot of problems in society. Her solutions are terrible. And that's why I think the Manosphere or the red pill community or whatever does kind of the same thing. Great job, because again, you have people of a rational mindset, but without God in their lives. Ayn Rand, she left the Soviet Union. She left communism. She was driven from it, and she saw societal issues that were big problems, and she was not afraid to talk about it. However, she was a raging atheist too, and she had a lot of stupid ideas on how to fix the problem. And she had a lot of stupid ideas on church, and a lot of stupid ideas on how your identity as a person. So, oh wait, I'm gonna get to you in a second, Vertex. Emmanuel said again, a lot of the red pill guys have become the internet's dads because they either grew without one or the dad wasn't entirely involved. Yes. Yeah. I don't know if that's going to be brought up in here, but that kind of goes hand in hand with what they're talking about. Veritax said, I'm requesting prayer tonight. 2 more job rejections today. The market for work is so strange right now, and it's hard to know what the Lord is doing or where he's pointing me right now. Veritax, been right there with you. I was 36 years old, I think. I was around 36 years old where I was unemployed for the first time in my life, or first time in my working life. My dad got me a worker's permit at 13, and I was probably employed throughout ever since, except for during the school years, and most of the time during that as well. But I had a family, me and my wife, 2 kids, and my 2 in-laws living in the house with us as well. I was the primary provider. And I took a job. I left a job because I was worried about the direction that the company was going. I thought that it was going to go under. I thought it was in real trouble. I still think it's in real trouble. But I left that job to take another job that I thought was going to it was going to put me where I kind of wanted to be on my career path. And ended up going from one bad environment to an even worse environment. And I lost my job, oddly enough, on Veterans Day. And when is Veterans Day? It's looking right towards the holiday season. Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. I was unemployed for a lot of that, and I didn't understand it. And I had a lot of prospects that said that they were going to hire. I had a job offer within a week, and then apparently the guy goes, "Oh, I wasn't really authorized to offer this position," and then it got pulled back. And then I had another one that was kind of led me along for a couple of months. I ended up not after the first of the year, taking a job as a side mechanic, as a roadside mechanic, working on trucks, working on broken down trucks, and it paid just enough. Paid just enough of what was going on, and with my wife working, we were able to just enough to pay the bills. We were just getting by. We had no health insurance. We were completely exposed. And again, while I was in a much better place than I was when I was not working, because I was working and I was doing things with my hands, and I was involved in getting out and waiting and working while I was looking for another job. My wife will tell you I was having a difficult job dealing with it. My wife is great. This has been one of the best parts about her coming to Christ and doing all this stuff. She puts so much faith in the Lord. She is so good. Now, she's not perfect at it, but she is so much better than me at saying, I'm putting it on God. I'm letting God guide me on this. And I think that's something that a lot of men struggle with, want to fix things. I need to lead. I need to take control. I need to do this. And when it doesn't work the way that we think it should, we go, what am I doing wrong? And sometimes maybe we're doing something wrong, but sometimes maybe Um, sometimes maybe we're just going through a transition period until we get that God is putting us on before we land where he wants us to land. And the path that I went to get where I am now, and I'm not saying I'm slaying it, but I'm doing what I like to do. I mean, I'm doing, and I don't, if I go further in what I'm doing, that's great. But if not, I'm happy as a clam. But how I got from there to here was a lot of stuff that I could never have imagined happening. So I know where you're at right now, Veritax, and I know that confusion, especially in the middle of the Trump presidency, which is where I was, where everybody was hiring, and I couldn't get a job. Or I would get a job, or I would get a job offer, it got rescinded. I couldn't get hired. And there were times of deep frustration, and deep personal moments with God where I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Please tell me. Please, please, please give me a sign. Please deliver me from this stuff. It's in his time, though. But I'll pray for you, Veritax. And I'm glad that you are looking to God, even if it's out of a point of confusion, because you're not the only. The Bible is replete with men in bad positions or in positions of kind of confusion, where they go to God and they're like, I'm in a bad place. I need you to send I need you to deliver me. And where they think they need to go is not exactly where they need to be. But they end up where they're supposed to be because God puts them there. You're my prayers, Veritax. And like I said, I understand. I understand where you're at. Emmanuel said, AI girlfriends, just look at the VTuber phenomenon, where a lot of them sell purity or GFE. I don't know what that is. And you see how much money they make off these simps. That I've seen make money off of these simps. And again, not angry with the women. You're assuming they're women, but disappointed with the men. I'm disappointed in all of them. I'm really just disappointed in all of them. That's where I land. But yeah, they making money. Nick's shown the thing. This is what I make as a YouTube as me as a YouTuber, and I'm the number one super chatted guy, he says. And then except for all of these guys, and they're all VTubers. The biggest red pill you can take is that alpha guys are the biggest simps, validating sinful women. Amanda said, now that's some real BS. I don't think it's against the Bible because the Bible is the OG red pill. No, the Bible is the OG Christ pill. Besides, Rollo is a Christ believer. You can't just blame a group just because they pointed out a big problem. Veritax, we got you, homie. It's fine because it's the same on my end, trying to grind, yet being an owner operator isn't easy and just getting harder. God will provide, brother. Let faith be your light and keep grinding, brother. Brother. I don't know Rollo, but I will say there's a lot of people who hold up Christianity saying, "Oh no, I'm one too." I don't know I don't know them enough to say one thing or another. I think they're going to get into this a little bit. I know that they mention him. They finally get to mentioning him in here. Blaine said, "Why is the red pill movement turning to Islam if the red pill believes in the Bible?" This I have seen. There is a lot like Andrew Tate, and a lot of people said, Islam's right about X. Islam's right about this. Islam's not right about anything. And this is, like I said, this is a lot of reactionary stuff that's leading people to it. Oh, girlfriend experience. Oh, okay, girlfriend experience. I'm sorry, boomer. I'm sorry, I'm a boomer. Or like Tate, who was always a Muslim. Veritax, the market is going to turn around. It's hard to be patient. Amen. It's hard for men, I think. This is just because I'm a man, and this is how I can relate. It is hard for us to be patient. We are providers. We are expected to be providers, leaders, and to have the answers a lot of times. And sometimes we don't. And when we can't figure it out, that is a major source of stress. The obvious answer is the red pill is not the gospel. It's a faux gospel that tickles the ears, just like Paul warned Timothy about. I think it has they have, in some cases, they have some similar ingredients that make them sound sometimes the same, depending on how it's presented. And again, this is a hard time to try to know the difference between what is a red pill and what is Christianity. All right, black pilled, changing colors, black pilled on marriage. As the institution of marriage has been eroded since the 1960s, there is a growing disillusionment to the prospects of marriage, particularly amongst men who believe it to be, here we go, Emmanuel, where did I go? Particularly amongst men who believe it to be a raw deal in which the legal deck is stacked against them. Marriage is likened to jumping out of a functional airplane with a parachute with a 50% success rate. I've heard that comparison before. The red pill community is familiar with the statistics in which 70% of divorces are initiated by women, 90% if the woman is college educated, and that the woman becomes the custodial parent 90% of the time, albeit mostly through settlement, which is unmentioned by the red pilled. I don't know what that part. I would like them to extrapolate on that a little bit, because I think that there's a case that they need to that should be made, and I think I know where they're going with it, but they don't flesh it out. They don't make their point, and I think I know what they're trying to say. That men, a lot of times, or in many cases, are settling their custodial rights. I don't know. But I don't know. I really wanted them to extrapolate a little bit more. The downside risks of no-fault divorce, and with it, legal expenses, alimony, child support, loss of custody, or marital infidelity have diminished the outlook of marriage amongst men. It's not great. And like I said, the red pill community is familiar with the statistics, and these statistics are hard to reconcile. They're hard to reconcile with. And what are the problems that we run into with this? No fault divorce. And then because of that, we have legal expenses, which are insane. Alimony, also insane. Child support, loss of custody, or marital infidelity. All this stuff. Where Emmanuel comes, I can fully admit I'm full doomer on marriage. Again, with the experience I've had, it's been a crap show. I've seen good ones, though, but it's rare. Emmanuel said, Sneeko is just a clout chaser. A lot of people want to put the red pill into a container when, in fact, it's a practical way of living, just like the Bible is a practical way of living. It's just telling you what to follow and it's telling you to follow what you want to. Right. However, just to correct something there, the Bible is the way of living, not a practical way of living. And the practical way would be the way. What the red pill is offering you is a solution that involves some of the correct ways of living, but it's missing things as well. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. I clicked the wrong button on my mouse and went backwards. Let me bring this back up. There we go. It is a lot easier to say to be patient for the market to turn if it doesn't affect you either way. Yeah, that is true. John Smoth, how's it going, buddy? The gayest part of the red pill community is the idea of a sexual marketplace and measuring people based on their place in that marketplace, both male and female. I miss the days when red pill was more about politics and culture than gender wars. Serrano's killed me. And it's his stream now, but he's not here. All right. Serrano's the host is gone. Talk about the Bible. The Christian all right, here we go. The Christian and the red pilled would agree that the system is disproportionately stacked against men and that feminism has eroded the institution of marriage. They agree that the state of modern women leaves much to be desired. Christians should be advocating against no-fault divorce and enacting other societal disincentives to divorce. It is not the problem that is disputed, but the solution. And I think that's why I said it's not the problem. I think we all see that the problem is, though we would also say, the Christians would also say the lack of God being in our lives and us leading godly lives is a reason for this as well. And is the solution. What the red pilled often ignores are factors which significantly decrease the chances of divorce that also significantly increase marital satisfaction. Okay. We're going to talk about, Serrano says, we're going to talk about my favorite story, the cleansing of the world. Which one? Are you talking about Noah's Ark, or are you talking about Christ cleansing us of sins? There's one we've already covered, then the next is still a long way away. In the readings, both have already happened. The flood, yeah, we covered the flood a long time ago. Serranos, we are in Nehemiah. We are not in Genesis. That's a long way from Genesis, Serranos. All right, so going back to this, what the red pilled often ignores are the factors which significantly decrease chances of divorce that also significantly increase marital satisfaction. Okay, all right, that's what I like. We disagree. This is where we disagree. This is what I think that they're missing. I know the solution is repeal the 19th, but it won't make a difference. Simps will always put women back in power. All right. Here we go. Here's where they start to delve in. Christianity teaches that marriage is between a man and a woman and that sex outside of these confines is sinful, including that of fornication. Isn't it all fornication? A study by the Institute for Family Studies found that premarital sex is a significant predictor of whether a marriage will end in a divorce. The probability of divorce is 5% within the first 5 years for those with no premarital sexual partners, significantly lower than every other statistical grouping. This is what I'll say on this. I know more than a couple of marriages where one or both of the spouses was a virgin when they got married. All of them are in their 30s. All of these people are in their 30s, got married in their 20s. Maybe teens. No. Very early 20s in some cases. They're all still married. They are all still married. It's anecdotal, I know. And it's just me talking. But there you go. I don't know anybody who waited for marriage or waited for marriage to have sex that's divorced from that marriage. Personally. Don't know anybody personally. Not saying it doesn't happen, but they said 5% within the first 5 years for those with no premarital sexual partners, significantly lower than every other statistical grouping. A study by the Wheatley Institute, BYU, the Mormons, released in 2023, found favorable correlations between relationship satisfaction, sexual satisfaction, and emotional connection with marital couples with only one sexual partner, their spouses, than couples who had multiple sexual partners. Contrary to the world's perception, sexual inexperience leads to better marital outcomes. It is almost as if the biblical model for marriage works. Imagine that. Imagine that. John Smoth, my wife and I got married when she was 19 and I was 20. Both still had our V card as well. Congratulations. I don't know you personally, John, but enough. Add another one to the list. And like I said, congratulations. Veritex says, no, not repeal the 19th, repeal the 17th. Let states be able to recall senators that don't serve their local interests and break the backs of the parties nationally. Nico. So is masturbation a sin while saving yourself? Assuming you are not watching porn while you do the deed, lol. That's a hugely deep conversation. And a lot of people, and there's a lot of differing opinions on that. That is not one that I'm really well equipped to answer, because one, I didn't stay a virgin, and I will readily admit that was a mistake. Two, I have had a long history of viewing pornography in my life, particularly as a teenager and my time in the Army. 15 years. Yes. Got married the same year I did. Hot dog. If you masturbate to your Serrano says if you masturbate to yourself, that is definitely a sin. Oh, yeah. John Smoth said we could just reject democracy and become base monarchists. Are you saying? Hey, look, we are all, as Christians, we're all monarchists, right? Christ is king. Right. Veritax said some suggest that Onan's story answers the M question, the spanking question. I don't think it applies, though. This is a conversation I had with a buddy of mine who is a very staunch traditional Catholic, and he called it Onanism, and I didn't know what it was until he explained. I was like, "Oh, Onan, okay." And I said, "I was like, maybe it is, but when I'm reading it, I'm saying this is a guy who has been given a specific instructions to do X, and he doesn't, and thus he is killed." Blaine says, "I think the Bible only castigates whacking it or spilling seed on the ground when he specifically tells them to make kids." Veritax said, "Beverly and I would have been married 23 years this week if not for passing 3 years ago." Again, sorry about that, sir. Gosh, it sucks. I know too many people who've been made widows and widowers over the past year. It sucks. And there was a time when we were in the hospital recently where I thought I was going to be in that same boat. And it is scary, even if it's only for hours or days. That is a scary thing to ponder. Thought it would be an easy one. It's not. a lot of questions you think are easy are not. But I'm glad you asked it, Nico, because you got people chiming in. Serranos, just to be clear, I'm not a professional quote maker. I'm just an atheist teenager who greatly values his intelligence and scientific fact over any silly fiction book written 3,500 years ago. That being said, I am open to any and all criticism. But in this moment, I am euphoric, not because of any phony God's blessing, but because I am enlightened by my intelligence. I don't know where that's coming. What is that, Serranos? What am I missing there? And for Veritex, who wouldn't want to return the widower merit badge, though? Yeah, all of them, or none of them, or all of them would want to return them. Ugh. In 2022, here we go, Emmanuel. In 2022, Rollo Tomasi was on the Valuetainment Money, in which he debated Ruslan on the merits of marriage. Rollo claims to be a Christian and has been married for over 26 years. Ruslan, who deserves credit for his performance on this podcast, called out Rollo for failing to preach what he practices when it comes to marriage. Rollo would contend that the environment is different nowadays, so therefore he aspires to give men the tools to navigate the landscape without being prescriptive. Rollo's supporters would suggest their debate was between Rollo's realism versus Ruslan's idealism, which is fair in that Christian teaching on marriage is in the realm of ideal. But even where one has fallen short, they should and we all fall short. Even where one has fallen short, they should still strive to live up to the standard rather than discard the standard because of the environment. I agree. Oh, that's from our atheism. That was from Reddit atheism. Don't bring Reddit. Don't ever quote Reddit on this show. Serranos, it's disgusting. Disgusting. The kid who wrote that is probably 30 now. And probably a different gender than what they were when they wrote it. John says Ruslan's YouTube channels have gotten so much better. I don't know who that is either. In truth, many detractors of apologetic for abstinence preceding marriages simply do not want to change their habit of premarital sex or otherwise curb their sinful sexual desires. It is not supposed to be easy, especially in modern society, but it does yield the best statistical outcomes. Rollo and Ruslan speak about the lost boys generation, but ultimately, family gives purpose to the lives of men as both fathers and husbands. Regardless of how black-pilled men have become towards marriage, there's still an innate desire for relationships that is going unmet, which fuels the demand for manosphere content in the red-pilled space, like Rollo. Ironically, women like Pearl advocate being a trad wife, but she herself is unmarried and more abrasive than a traditional woman ought to be. Yeah. Emmanuel said realism and idealistic are two different viewpoints. I saw that, and again, it was just a bunch of blood sports. I get that there's two, and I think that they're making that point as well, that they are two different perspectives, right? But we live in the real world and should be striving for the ideal. And we can't make the world the ideal, but we can do our best to work to make our life the ideal. To do the work necessary to bring our lives more important into it. If we think the problem is a lot of porn, a lot of premarital sex, a lot of sex out of wedlock, and a lot of all that stuff, if we as men, and I've said this before, if we as men think that is wrong with women, and if we feel like we need to hold women to that standard, we need to hold ourselves to that standard, not just our friends and people around us, ourselves. And you can't take back what you've already done, but starting today or starting whenever you get to this point, starting then, moving forward, that's where you make the change. That's where you make the big change. Veritex was watching OP level 1. Glad you had it covered. Oh, the H3 take on Pearl. Y'all are way over my head on this. Veritex said, I feel like we have forgotten how to make friends even among our own gender. It's hard to be vulnerable with other people with how society is today. It is. It is. And I think that's important for us to make friends outside of the internet, and make friends in real life. Look for those people. You might feel like you're the only person out there who wants to live a godly life. There are other people out there, and they are searching for friends like you. They might not be actively searching it. They might not know that they're craving it, but we are. We are. Emmanuel said, does family really give value to some guys? Pearl is just a big grifter. We can try, but some will follow some paths, but you can't just go moral shame. You just can't go moral shaming because you didn't take that path. What we're saying, or what I'm saying anyway, we're commanded to be fruitful and multiply. It's one of the first things God, it's not the first thing, it's one of the first things God tells us to do. He tells that to Adam and Eve as they go out, be fruitful and multiply. God had Adam, he gave him Eve, and he gave them that command, and they had kids. And we see where the family unit, we've had examples already that we've read about in our Bible readings where this has, where this is not, where the family dynamic is broken and it has caused problems, right? So, is it family give real value to some guys? I think if you're if you're living a life for Christ, it does. And I'm not saying that you got to force your way into it. I'm not saying to say, no, if you are not married with kids right now, you are not a Christian. That's not what I'm saying. But it should be something that it should be one of those, if you check box of things I need to be doing. I do need to be open and alert for an opportunity to meet some lady that I can create a family around. Because and here's some evidence for that, Emmanuel. You're a man with a lot of experience already in your life, right? You are a man who has realized that you have gone into some dark places and you want to be better, and you see a lot of problems with the world. That makes you probably, as you get older, are going to grow and become a better role model. And who are you going to be the most who are you going to be getting the most giving the most influence to? Your kids. And if you are directly involved in the development, creation, and sending out of the next generation, you are not only winning souls for Christ, but you're putting people out there who can do the same thing. Kind of a pyramid scheme, right? It's kind of a pyramid scheme when you think about it. But it's one with an origin of righteousness from it. And it's one that is spreading righteousness, goodness, wholesomeness, obedience to God. And that's why I said, and you've heard me say it before, I'm not going to continue to ring that bell, Emmanuel. You know that I'm rooting for you. And that I'm saying that just be open for it. And that might make you feel like, and I know where that this article might seem like, no, you need to be married right now. No. I don't think that's what they're saying. What I'm saying is you need to be sexually pure. You need to do what you can to purify yourself sexually. And that means eliminating a lot of places that men go to and find self-comfort in, that they shouldn't. And what do we see a lot of, especially what have we seen a lot of with the kings? And before that, men giving into sexual lust in the Old Testament and it really causing problems later on down the road. Men letting women use that influence from sexual lust and desire to make those mistakes. Sexual purity is something that I know that we as men struggle with a ton. We struggle with it a ton. And there are more vectors of temptation there. And if you're struggling with it, man, you're not the only one doing it. I think this is something that Nick talks about a lot. How that's mostly very insightful. Porn is toxic. Having multiple partners is toxic, and it doesn't put us in a good place. It leads us into bad decisions, and it leads us into opportunities where a child is being raised. A child is created, is born, and is raised without its mom or father around, and they need both of us. They need both of us. They need both of us teaching them, leading them, and they need God. So, and maybe you're getting more of that from them because you know that they are attacking kind of an area that you get a lot of. You listen to a lot of it. It sounds like you listen to a fair share of what you consume is from this community. And these guys are saying, "Oh no, all that stuff. They identify the problem just fine, but all their solutions are wrong." But this is what I'm drawing out of this as somebody who, again, I'm not perfect with my faith. I'm not perfect in this, but what I do see in this is stuff that I read about in Scripture, that I understand where they're coming from with it, and where they're trying to lead people, but not always. It's not always the easiest to communicate, and there are hard truths in here, and there's difficulty understanding and coming to terms with what the solutions need to be. And again, we're not miracle workers. That's Jesus. That's Jesus and the apostles and other folks. I'm not Solomon. I don't have great wisdom here. But what I'm saying is we need to do our best to rid our lives of these things and be an example to the world. Excuse me if you heard me belch just now. Body count, promiscuity, and gender. Oh, I want to go back here. Looks at this. This is a little chart they did. In the 1980s, 10% of divorce was with 0 partners. Maxed out divorce rate with 10 plus partners. Good night. I don't even know where to go with this. The divorce rate, let's go look at it in 2000. Divorce rate by sexual partners. If you had 0 partners, you had a 5% chance within the first 5 years. 1 partner, that skyrockets up to 20%. Odd that it's 20%. 2 partners, between 30 and 35%. Then it seems to drop a little bit down into the mid-20s. But then 10 plus partners, the divorce rate is 35%. I'm surprised it's that low. But who knows? I don't know how many people are getting married with 10 plus partners. I can't think of anybody I know off the top of my head that's had that many. Manuel said, again, without God guiding me here, I would have had the Smith & Wesson retirement plan long ago. You hear, oh, you're such a good man for the 20th time. Then comes around and asks for a second go at it. Yeah. Then comes around and asks for a second go at it. with either a kid in tow or trying to manipulate you, or learn you were just in the orbit. And I've been there. I've been in the orbit. I've been the manipulated. I've been those things. Sometimes you just need to see somebody. You just need to see somebody brand new, and that's going to be and look, Emmanuel, you're not in the job that makes that easy. As an owner operator, you're on the road a lot. It's not easy for you to settle down and um, have a normal life. That is a difficult life to have a family with. But again, like I said, your opportunity will come. If it's to come, your opportunity will be there. Just keep your eyes open for it. All right. Try to see if you're like, God has put this person in my life for a reason. God has put this woman in my life for a reason. Maybe I need to give it an honest chance. I'm not saying that that's any woman, right? I'm not saying that every woman you cross paths with is going to be that. It's just when you meet a lady and you're like, huh, seems like it seems like all the stars are aligning, right? Seems like it just seems like there's something different about this. I'm not saying don't be skeptical, and don't try to keep your don't not saying don't look for red flags, but give it an honest chance. That's why I say go to 40K route and burn the heretic. But I'm being cynical, perhaps. It's a hard time to not be cynical, Emmanuel. But the more you get into the word, the more hope it fills you with. All right. The state of modern women is daunting, even for the young Christian man who is ideally abstaining from premarital sex and pornography. Statistically, unmarried women skew heavily liberal, and our society both promotes hookup culture and demeans chastity. The red-pilled are often, not always, often turned off from the prospects of marriage when women are more promiscuous than prior generations. They will claim 80% of women are chasing after a 20% of men, which is statistically supported through an OkCupid study. However, it must be noted that men still retain higher averages for sexual partners. And this is the chart here. You guys can go through. Percentages of women 25 to 49 with one partner. It's lower. It's lower with one partner. Women have more one partner, or have been with one person more so than men. 2 to 4 partners. When it goes to 15 or more partners, women are 12.9% of women, 15 or more partners. That's a lot. That's 1 out of 10 women I know. 28.3% of men, 15 or more partners. Wonder how many of these guys are making them numbers up. 10 to 14 partners, 11.6% of women, 12.5% of men. 5 to 9 partners, this is where women are ahead of men. 28.6%, 25.8%, but they're close. 2 to 4 partners, and 1 to 4 partners is women are beating men, and men are way higher in the 15 or more partners. Contrary to the red pill's messaging that most women nowadays have massive double-digit body counts, the National Survey of Family Growth still found that men had higher body counts than women by a significant margin. Even the median number of partners is 4.3 for women and 6.3 for men. However, marital satisfaction decreases after 4 partners for both men and women. Okay, so again, they're both doing the wrong side. Amanda said, correction, 100% of women want 20% of the top dudes. Again, you look at fertility, age, and then the age. There's a reason the store is called Forever 21 and not Forever 41. Well, again, look, I'm not going to get after that because 100% of you look, if you are a person, your natural is to be like, I'm aiming for the best guy possible, or I'm aiming for the best woman possible. I want somebody who is close to perfect as possible, 10 out of 10. Where do I say, okay, this is not necessary. This is not necessary. And I'm looking at these women that should always check down. You should want someone who checks all your boxes, who is the perfect top woman, and they should be looking for the perfect top man. The problem is, and this is the problem is, there's a lot of shallow people out there, a lot of shallow women and a lot of shallow men, and a lot of them want to talk. And so it's easy. It's easy. Those are the ones you see. All right, put this into perspective, Emmanuel. From an owner-operator's perspective, from a truck driving perspective. When I was working for PACCAR, all right, I saw a ton. And when I was working as a roadside mechanic, I saw trucks all the time. All the time. Every time, 75% of the time they're broken down for after treatment. The DPF is clogged. There's a knock sensor out. There is something going on, something through a code, and the truck's derating. And so my opinion, as when I worked for PACCAR, I was like, "Gone." I was like, these trucks do nothing but break down. But what I realized once I got out of that environment is I said, the only times I'm seeing these trucks is and the only trucks that I'm seeing are the ones that break down. It's the same thing when you see these podcasts. They go out, you can find women just like you can find men, but you can find women who want to talk about how great they are, how their standards are so high, no matter how they look, and will immediately, stupidly, almost intentionally, it seems, put their foot in their mouth about their standards and their body counts and all this stuff. It's low-hanging fruit. And there is enough shallow people in the world that you don't have to look very hard to fill your room or studio with people who think this way. So when you hear that, and I see it too, I watch, and every time I tune in, when I see it pop up on the Instagram or the Facebook feed with the videos where, they're doing an interview with these women, and we all know about Gorlock the Destroyer, which is just sad, right? But we've seen these where the woman says something completely dumb, and the guy's like, "Oh, why do you feel that way? What do you think your kids are going to think about when they see that you have their OnlyFans?" And they're all at the end going, That's easy to do. That's easy to do. There's something to be said for the fact that we are putting this shame on display. That might be a good thing, but the problem is you don't want to create this idea that this is the only type of woman that exists for the most part. I see that they're out there. I've dated some of them, right? But what I see now, that I'm in a church and I've seen women, one of my first guests on this show, and I ask everybody to go and look at this because she has an interesting story. Her name is Kristen Gupta. She's now married. She was married when she came on the program. She now has a kid. Was paralyzed as a teenager in a jet ski accident from the waist down. I remember because she used to go to church with me. She used to be in my Sunday school, and that's why I reached out to her, because I knew she had an incredible story to share. And she's written books, and She's written books on it and everything, but you could tell her standard wasn't up high. She just wanted somebody who would look past the fact that she was in a wheelchair, who could just treat her decently, and I'm pretty sure had faith in God, right? And that their personalities matched on a level. You can run across, I know women who have gotten into bad marriages or have divorced, maybe for adultery, maybe for the wrong reason. And they did that when they were young, and they're a little bit older now, and they're like, I was looking for the wrong result. You will find a lot of men out there the same way, who got into marriages early in life and got out of it, and now they're sitting there going, I didn't value what was right. Some of that is us being young and stupid. Some of it has been the way that culture sets us up as people. I've seen enough of it. I've seen enough of both sides, of men and women, honestly and earnestly, not without unrealistic expectations, to say that there are plenty of them out there. I'm not saying that there's most of the women out there are like this. Like I said, you can find shallow people all day. I'm not saying that most of the women out there, I'm not saying most of the men are out there like that, but they're out there. There's good people out there. You just need to keep your eyes open for them, and you need to honestly listen to folks and observe them. And that's why I said a lot of times church is a great place to find people, because you've got people that you're communicating with about very important issues that should have very similar, life goals. And you're supposed to, and that weeds out a lot of the shallow people, the uber hedonistic people that populate these shows. Oh yeah, and then Emmanuel says, "Oh yeah, I've got standards, bro, on both sides. It's hilarious. Just use the female delusional calculator. It's out there, but again, that's what I'm saying. Not all women. Hashtag not all women subscribe to that calculator, or even really understand that it exists. But I think that some women think that they're a commodity, and that messes with their heads. And they go, either I'm worthless or everybody wants me. And neither of those mindsets are healthy for them or for people that they're with. But who created that? A little bit of feminism has had that influence. But again, we can look at the numbers and we can say men have too. We have. We're supposed to be leaders. We're supposed to be the example. But look at our numbers. We're leading by example here. They have high body counts. We have higher body counts. By the numbers. That doesn't mean you have them, Emmanuel. Doesn't mean I have them. Doesn't mean anybody in this chat has them. But what are they seeing? What is being pushed through the media? Women consume a lot of media. A lot. And a lot of it is the normie flavor, right? And that's the side that's pushing this lack of purity. Chastity is a bad thing. Go have sex with all the people that you want. Whatever people you want. God is stupid. That's what they're being influenced by. And if they don't have a strong male leader as a spouse or as somebody who's courting them currently with the intention to be the spouse, then how much more likely are they to fall into that, right? Me and my wife first met we agreed on a lot of things, and then we weren't hanging out all the time. And I went and deployed overseas, and she went and graduated from college. And when we got back together, I had seen where college had changed a lot of her opinions. A lot of her opinions. Those opinions have swayed a lot in the other direction towards me. Not once we started dating, a lot of that started to shift backwards or shift back to where we were. And that's reinforced a lot of that. If you want to know where there's a problem with these women, the 304s, as you saying, excuse me. If you want to know why there's a problem with them, we've been terrible examples. We've been terrible examples as a group. And thank you for bringing that up, Emmanuel. Well, remember what happened to the Sex and the City creator? She regrets ever making that show and would trade it for a family any day. Well, consequences of her actions now live with her. And not just her, but many women who watch that show, right? Now show the dancing coffin meme. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of times you realize, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I did a lot of harm in the way I behaved. There we go. All right. The Wheatley Institute also found that only 12% of marriages featured husbands with 15 or more sexual partners, indicating that the players encompassing the 28.3% of men are disproportionately and unsurprisingly unmarried. Historically, these are drastic changes in our society caused by the sexual revolution. Of those born in the 1910s, the Wheatley Institute claimed that 70% of women and 50% of men reported only having one sexual partner, representing a drastic shift in the last century. Whereas anything higher than zero was considered high not even a century ago. The current standard is that a female body count of 4 or less is considered low. I'm not going into you can get into the charts later. One of the surprising and underreported trends is female promiscuity relative to male promiscuity for women under 30. The notion that women are living it up in their 20s is statistically supported, and it is a shame that the Wheatley Institute did not discuss this finding of married women in their report. Over time, it does appear that married men overtake women on body count, but the damage caused to society by the average being hired for married women under 30 compared to their male counterparts cannot go unstated, as every statistic surrounding delayed marriages and divorce is resultant from this dangerous mindset. The average is already primed for negative statistical outcomes within marriage. There was a time before I got married, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, and I was in doing my army thing, where I was having a lot of difficult relationships, or periods of no relationship or prospects of relationship at all, where I said, if I'm not married by the time I'm 25, I'm calling it quits. I'm gonna go live on my own, be a hermit all my life, go live in the mountains somewhere. And I know, and I thought I was unique until I started talking to other guys who felt the same, way. I was having so many problems. Where was I at when I turned 25? Engaged to my current wife and only wife, my current and only wife. But when I was 23, I thought I was barreling towards a lifetime of loneliness. I thought that was just the way that, look, I said, not everybody has a great outcome. Not everybody has a storybook ending. It's not for, maybe a relationship's not for me. But I mean, that's where I was. But then my wife, a girl who we had talked about having a relationship with each other and maintained a close friendship with each other. That's just a very interesting way, and things lined up, and now we're married, 3 kids, and she wasn't a believer, and now she is, which is great. It's great. The thing, like I said, if you wanted me to talk about the best accomplishment on that I can lay my hat on outside of being a father, it's the fact that if I brought at least somebody at least gives me credit for bringing them to Christ, and it's my wife. And maybe I did the wrong thing marrying unevenly yoked. Maybe unevenly yoking myself, but it worked fine. You mean we were close to having a flawed cat dad of God? Only if the cats were like bobcats and mountain lions and stuff like that, cougars. Yeah, because like I had a friend in the Army. He was from Oregon. He had talked about how great it was. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go live in the mountains of Oregon, and that's where I'm gonna go. I know what you're talking about, Emmanuel. Based, he said. So over time, it doesn't fear that men overtake women on body count, but the damage caused to society by the average being higher for married women under 30 compared to their male counterparts cannot go unstated, as every statistic surrounding delayed marriages and divorce is resulted from this dangerous mindset. The average is already primed for negative statistical outcomes within marriage. An interesting study from Date Psychology found that only 12% of women prefer a man with no sexual experience versus 7% of men, who disproportionately lean younger and conservative. Studies like this exemplify the ideological divide between men and women, where women at large do not prefer chastity in men versus men who desire it in women. There is a hypocrisy where women complain about the double standard, yet desire men who have slept around. Meanwhile, the men who do not sleep around are disproportionately interested in virgins. So the 15% difference is not some Sigma male Andrew Tate archetype, but likely are a Gen Z conservative. Undoubtedly, the disparity impacts the inability of young men to find virtuous women. Evolution and hypergamy. One of the key distinctions between the Christ-pilled and the red-pilled. How much longer? We got a long way to go, dudes. We are barreling towards 2 hours right now. We're going to read this whole thing, though. One of the key distinctions between the Christ-pilled and the red pill is the latter's evolutionary framework, which inherently leads to a hedonistic attitude, wherein the goal is to navigate the environment to maximize sexual pleasure. As an aside, the red pill's framework is not to be conflated with evolutionary psychology, as it is more epistemological than empirical. I don't know what they're going with that. I'm too stupid for that one. Through an evolutionary framework, this allows the red pill community to ultimately rationalize their low view of women, marriage, and family. Behaviors are treated through the lens of pseudo-evolutionary mating rituals rather than the imago Dei. Gosh, I know I pronounced that wrong. Or the fall of man. Marriage is treated as a declining social utility rather than a divine institution. Man's sexual desires are to be satisfied rather than controlled or sedated through vice. Under these assumptions, women operate to maximize hypergamy. Hypergamy is defined as pairing with someone at or above one's social standing. To an extent, this has always been true. Women seek men who possess money, assets, athletic build, or other qualities that are indicative of one's ability to protect and provide. It is not unreasonable and perhaps innate to female nature that they desire these qualities, as was discussed with Bible Bashed. There they go. Did he hyperlink this? Oh, yeah, discussing dating with Bible Bash. He links back to an earlier article or YouTube link. I don't know. They are not attracted to homeless men on the streets, but wealthy or athletic men. The problem is not that women seek hypergamy, but that the restraints against moral excess have been removed. Women can access birth control and abortion, which provide moral hazard to their fornication, whereas before they had to regulate their behaviors. Fatherless homes exasperate the promiscuity of women who fornicate due to an absence of a strong male presence in their life. Feminism devalues child rearing in favor of pursuing careers and sexual gratification. Social media provides instant gratification through validation, inflating one's sense of pride towards their market value relative to the available men. For women, the hyper-competitive landscape of dating apps creates a paradox of choice, whereby an abundance of options can counterintuitively lead to less happiness, less satisfaction, and hamper the ability to make a decision. These are cultural and spiritual problems that get reduced to evolutionary pseudoscience. You got to go. That's fine. Hey, Stu, I'd love to talk more, but I need to get to sleep. Got to get up to 3:30 to get to Waco. We can talk more RP another day. God bless everyone. God bless you, Emmanuel, and safe travels. I don't know who it was, if it was Nick or Drex, who was talking about women being pursued by men makes them think that they have this they have more market value than they have to do because they don't realize that a man is pursuing them, likely that many men are pursuing them just as a conquest, just for the sexual release that they need, and then once that because they want to, or because they're settling, because they're pursuing their own hedonistic need. They put themselves out there, they're going to get hits from a lot of guys trying to hook up with them. And they think that that means that their market value is high. That doesn't mean that their market value is high as a spouse. Because then when they go, oh, I want to settle down, the guys that they were hooking up with aren't interested in them, because they can get those guys who are higher numbered than they are, as far as, they're a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, whereas the woman might be a 5 or a 6 out of 10. They were just a means to an end to the man. But they think that because he settled for her, that they would settle down for her. And they're not, because they can get more attractive women, or women that meet their standards more than that particular woman does. I think that Nick or Drex, whichever one did it, did a much better job of explaining it than I just did. Regarding hypergamy, the red pill community asserts that women are generally looking to upgrade men or transfer from alphas to settle with betas. While there might be anecdotes, the general trend is that men are more prone to infidelity than women. The only age demographic where women are more prone to cheat is married women under 30, which is a whopping difference of 1%. So this theory lacks statistical support. Married men over 50 are far likelier to cheat than women at rates above 20%, while women remain in the teens. Yet there is almost an assumption that alpha males, or high-value men, are expected to cheat, or perhaps are entitled to. Kevin Samuels called this a privilege to cheat, not because they should, but because the high-valued man has that option. Even Pearl can be seen stating that high-value men bring high-value problems, which is a warning to any woman who would marry a high-value man. It is unlikely she would hold this standard that infidelity should be expected when married to a so-called high-valued woman. Logically, wealthy, powerful men have no shortage of women who might throw themselves at them. The temptation for sexual sin, namely that of adultery and fornication, are stronger for these so-called high-value men. What would be an example of high-value man in the Bible? David, right? Solomon, right? We've seen what happens. We see what happens. We went through that whole explanation recently when we were reading through Samuel, Chronicles, and Kings. Samuel, Kings, and Chronicles. Many of the underlying assumptions within the red-pilled community ultimately treat mankind as a glorified animal. Yes. Yet, ironically, they employ either inconsistent standards or outright untrue assumptions towards the behaviors of men and women. We are not glorified animals. We are specifically set aside by animals, and all you have to do is look at a person and then look at an animal and see that's different. The iron rules of Tomasi. Rather than seek to change the seek, I think they mean to seek to. Rather than seek to change the landscape or elevate men, Rollo Tomassi instead offers his descriptive suggestions, which are called his 9 iron rules. He would contend he is not prescriptive, but only descriptive, so that people are allowed to disagree. Regardless, the rules are presented promote promiscuity amongst men to combat the landscape to maximize sexual gratification. They are not fixated towards family formation or helping a man find a wife, which would actually be following the footsteps of Rollo, but instead helping men pick up loose women under the assumption that everyone is promiscuous. And it's not. That's not true, right? Not everyone is promiscuous. His first basic rule: frame is everything. Always be aware of the subconscious balance of whose frame in which you are operating. Always control the frame, but resist giving the impression that you are. Whether in politics or relationships, proper framing is key to communication and controlling the conversation. How one frames themselves to a woman matters in a courtship process. While there is a combative notion of framing, in which it is a tool to help men assert control in the relationship, at its best, this take is about a man's presentation, confidence, and assertiveness. Rule 3 is the most questionable. Any woman who makes you wait for sex by her actions implies she is making you wait for sex. The sex is never worth the wait. Oh, wait, hold on. The rule 3 is the most questionable. Any woman who makes you wait for sex or by her actions implies she is making you wait for sex. The sex is never worth the wait. Rollo would appear to a principle of desirability. That is the rule man, I am reading this guy wrong. Rollo would appeal to a principle of desirability, that this rule is a measure of a woman's desire. But this rule objectively promotes promiscuity in hookup culture. Red pill types might assert that a woman would have a different set of rules for an alpha versus a beta. But any woman that gives it away so easily is not a virtuous woman, regardless of the man. Even if this is about desirability, the sexual emphasis of the statement cannot be ignored. That's right. This rule 3, woman who makes you wait for sex, especially if she's a virgin. Guess what, dude? You want that. You want her to be able to control her sexual urges, and you need to be able to control yours. That's not to say that's all these are iron rules, right? He's calling it these iron rules. If a woman's attempting to be virtuous, that's not a bad thing. And they said the sex is never worth the wait. Statistically, he's an idiot. That's dead wrong. So, unless you're talking about hookup culture, if you're just looking to hook up, you're already in the wrong place. You shouldn't be in the hookup culture. If you are a Christian and you are in hookup culture, you should be getting yourself out of it, because it doesn't lead you in a good place. The mindset behind these rules is not designed for marriages, but navigating hookup culture. That's why the rule is what it is. Therein lies the contradiction in the Manosphere. Because there is a view of women as an object for sexual gratification combined with a low view of marriage, its promotion of fornication is inevitable, which then creates a feedback loop of adding to the body counts of women, furthering the sexual immorality. Even Andrew Tate, who has a somewhat positive message about masculinity, is contradicted by his lifestyle of promiscuity and his former webcam business that profited off the weak simp culture he critiques. No amount of charm or well-articulated talking points erases the fact that he is the world's most infamous pimp. Shots fired. Conclusion. The growing societal decay is met with pervasive sexual sin. While the state of modern women is abysmal, the red pill manosphere ultimately falls short in offering a solution that yields tangible benefits for men and women, the former of which they purportedly seek to help. Because this segment of men is an enlarging share of our population, there is no shortage of grifters that will entertain the disaffected masses, like the unmarried Pearly Things or the monogamously married Rollo Tomassi. That's the people of the world. Here we go. Boop. The church must be the beacon of light amidst this nihilistic darkness. The church should be a place where relationships are both formed and thrive. There is great emphasis for married couples that is often absent towards those who are single. Whereas there is a mantra that singleness is a gift, which is likened to the Apostle Paul, who was unmarried, which does not mean he was never married. This is more likely to be an exception rather than normative. Churches should fixate towards promoting and fostering relationships which lead to marriages. Meanwhile, marriage and family should be promoted to young women within the church, that they should not be like the worldly women, just as men should not be as the worldly men. But if the church does not answer this challenge, more men will be turned over to the red-pilled manosphere types who claim to offer a solution to their legitimate struggles. These struggles, left unmitigated, give way to pornography, despair, and further societal strife. Barring correction, this masculinity crisis in the West will exacerbate the troubling circumstances, ultimately to the deserved condemnation of entire societies. In the end, if America is to be revived, then it will be because churches develop masculine men who forge strong families which raise their children in the fear and admonition of the Lord, not because the perfect political candidate was elected. Great conclusion. Awesome wrap up. Did exactly like I said. This article does a lot of good things, makes a lot of strong comparisons, and talks about where the manosphere might be skewing some numbers or ignoring some numbers to promote what they want to promote, which is definitely a problem, but they don't see where it is, where they're enabling it in their themselves. Simp culture does it, and so do they. If you're not gonna view women as virtuous or have the expectation that women are virtuous, or not share your body with someone who is virtuous, who you are married to, then guess what? You are part of hookup culture. You are part of that problem. But that's stuff of the world. The church has to be above that. We have, as part of the church, have to be above that. We need to be better examples of this. We need to say, like me, I didn't wait for marriage. I should have. I did the wrong thing. It is me and my wife. We have had some struggles in our past. And would things have been better if we had both waited? Would things have been better if we did what God said, what God has commanded us of? Do we have great examples to point to of people who did do it correctly? Yes, I do. I have people in my church who did that. And they have been married for 20 years, for 40 years, for 60 years. They have got they've got kids, they've got grandkids, they've got great caring grandkids. They've got tons of legacy to point to, of happiness, of people living within the word, more Christians, more people who understand and can look up to say, my parents did it right. My kids can look up and said, my parents are still married. My parents were only married once. Right? Both of my parents were divorced were on their second marriage. Or on their second marriage. Both of my parents are still married to each other. But before they got married and had me, they had been previously married. But that's where you go. All right. Well, this has been a long stream, but I really like this article, and I really want. Oh man, a lot of this stuff is really good quote. I'm going to put that on the Facebook page. All right. So to conclude, guys, this is a great article. Evangelical Dark Web did a great service to us by writing it. For anybody who reads it will get something out of it, and I'm glad they're out there putting articles like this out there. So that's that. To Emmanuel Osorio, John Smoth, always great when you talk. Their attacks, thinking about you, buddy. Serranos, Blaine, who's probably streaming right now. Nico, who also had the checkout. And everybody who stayed with me, man, thanks. I don't know how you did it. Who else? Dresden was in here for a bit, cracking some jokes that were a little inappropriate. Porcupine Mayhem I saw in here. There you go. And I think that was it. I hope I didn't miss anybody. I was scrolling a lot. A lot of you guys, thank you. There was a lot of content added from you guys being here, and I appreciate that. To everybody who, who's just listening, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for giving me your ear. Glad I am here for you, as some form to get whatever you're looking for out of it. And everybody catching me on the back end, hope to catch you live soon. Everybody have a great night, and God bless.